I've been a proponent of a couple of ideas that are not necessarily original, but they are not the most popular in the world. As my career in life I've developed, I've zeroed in on some of the educational aspects in more and more specific ways out of necessity. You know, I actually have been doing clinic-type activities since my university days. But having said that, I'm hoping that it's gotten a little more concise and a little bit more clear as I've gone along. And of course, you have that much more experience in things as you play. There's nothing like experience, right? I mean, I remember when John Faddis first started to bubble up. Of course, he bubbled up here because he was from New York or nearby. But as his reputation spread around the world, and he began, well, I shouldn't say began, but my first awareness was when he was with Lionel Hampton's band. And he was like 8, I don't know. And playing the way he does, you know. But the thing was, one of the people I respected at Eastman School of Music, where I attended, I respected. He was one of my mentors, Rayburn Wright, who was a great teacher, writer, etc., educator and mentor. We were listening to some Thad Jones by that time, and he said, the thing that kills me is he's so young and he sounds so mature. Phrasing, you know, that sort of thing. Well, that's a rarity. And so when all of us are maturing and getting better and more seasoned and more wise about our playing, except a few people who are so stuck in routine that they can't get past it. Now, I'm not saying routine's bad. I got my warm-up routine. I've got my routines like I go in and out of. But I don't have one of those 4-hour kind of regimen where you have to set your trumpet on your nose and then play kind of thing, where it takes all of your time, and then you discover that maybe you start to do some tone production that has some power to it or something like that, but no music. So anyway, kind of stepping back again, when I referred to perhaps being a little bit out of the mainstream with the teaching that has gone on since the beginning of time, I'm anti-buzz, for instance. Does that sound odd to you or not? I don't know, maybe. What makes the sound? I mean, this is real simple, I know, and think simply. This is not a trick question, but somebody tell me what causes the sound to happen when you're playing a single note on a trumpet? Air. Air, yeah, the air. And what's the air doing? Vibrating. Vibrating where? Moving, yeah, moving and vibrating, right. Mm-hmm. It's simple, isn't it? But the notion of buzzing, for instance, creates a beginner sound. So if you start that way, you got a problem. And if you teach that way, you got a problem. Maybe not with everybody. I mean, I was told to buzz, so, you know, you can learn, you can figure it out. But I also caught on really quickly to the very fundamental idea that the sound is the barometer for everything. Sound quality, let's call it. If you have a nice, a nice, full, fat sound from a beginner stage, and it develops from there, you're on the right track. Then it really doesn't matter, you know. You could be talking about playing in any number of ways. But we generally have a tendency to talk so much buzzing and so much corner strength and things like that, that you get a lot of tension going. And most of you are attendees of a lot of musical events and clinics and things like that. I've seen this kind of thing before, but just to reiterate, if you notice, if you create a lot of turbulence as the air leaves your mouth and goes into the mouthpiece, that's what creates all this action that makes the air column vibrate against the tube. There's turbulence in here. That's why the cup is so important to not only the timbre of your color, but how easy it is to play certain notes and how much energy and action you get from the energy you're putting in. So if you're putting in, you know, whatever unit, like if you're putting in with your air so many pounds of pressure, I don't want to call it pressure. Let's call it the Wasputniks through the horn, through your mouth, and it goes into here. Then certain mouthpieces and setups diminish the energy that you're creating and don't get as much result as others. So you want to create the energy without the tension. Lord knows we have enough tension when we learn to play. I mean, how do you learn to play an interval, for instance? Well, you learn to play it by feel, really. I mean, we could go into the aspects of what happens in a muscular nature and with tongue placement and with air, amount of air pressure against the aperture size and stuff like that. But basically, we're learning by feel, right? You kind of overblow a harmonic like you do on a Coke bottle or a flute to get the next one and things like that. And we try all kinds of tricks to help the students and mental images and things. But basically, the air is going through in a fashion that if you have an embouchure that's relaxed in the middle, firm but not like locked in terms of stressed corners. They should just be comfortably firm. And you create an aperture by, all of you have been playing long enough, I suppose, that you have an aperture, an embouchure that's pretty much set. It'd be hard to change, you know. So your aperture is something like, if you're blowing out birthday candles, but not like this, because you know the air won't travel fast enough, right? So we make a little aperture. So if you play the trumpet like this, steady, 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 even, 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 you get results. I've taken beginners and done that with them, and they can play up the G on top of the staff the first day sometimes. They're not getting in their own way. And if you find that if you feel like you have a lot of tension in your playing when you start to play lip slurs or, let's say, arpeggiated material, this could be a situation where you could actually relax more. Because we have a lot of books that say, you know, work on the corners, do lots and lots of lip slurs for the corners. And that sort of focus that creates tension. I've come across players when they take their horn out of their case, they tighten their lips up like, you know, okay, here it is. It's so true, isn't it? And I've worked with a couple of these guys, not always successfully, by the way, because habits are so ingrained, especially at a university kind of level or older. It can be high school too, but when you've been playing quite a few years, that to get the person, this one person in particular, to put his mouthpiece on his embouchure without making an embouchure, he couldn't do it. It was always clamp, clamp. I had him put his mouthpiece on his cheek, and still. The poor guy, I mean, thank heaven he was like a genius in nanotechnology or something, because his trumpet playing was definitely going to stay casual. But the whole notion of breathing in a very relaxed way, blowing through your playing apparatus, let's call it, in a relaxed way, is a wonderful thought to keep in mind always. And the breath in, of course, is extremely important, how big and relaxed it is. But I don't know, just to sort of illustrate a little bit. Right, you know? You can work on your accuracy a little, like I was trying to play all C's. You know? But you know what I mean? It's the kind of thing that is very useful as a concept that can be started with the young ones. Now, another thought would be, how do we manufacture the techniques with which we need to play all this music without getting all caught up in tension and things that make us tight? And there's an idea, for instance, that's very simple that you can share with others. I think you've maybe even probably done this before, but if I could ask, would you mind coming up here? Yep. Young lady?
Me?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you scared me.
I'm so sorry. This is great. This is the simplest thing in the world, by the way. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that you haven't done a million times. All I would like you to do in just a second is to wiggle the third valve up and down as fast as you can and make sure it hits the bottom.
It's not going as fast as my heart. I can.
Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. No problem. So, I'm going to play what we hopefully would consider a nice, don't do it quite yet, a nice comfortable G in the staff. Okay, one sec. Let's hear the G first, and then see if you can do that and make sure it hits the bottom.
Okay.
Wait, one sec. Okay, who's playing the technique, me or her? Right? Beautiful job, thank you.